Hello, a very good welcome to our other episode of the Uganda Diaspora Show. My name is Lynn Komugisha. Those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I welcome you to to Civic Space TV, particularly, and to say that today is a very interesting day. We get to speak about interesting things, and most importantly, today is very critical in that we are going to speak about something very, very delicate, something that has been here. We are diving into a story that is sadly not new, especially for this show. It's an issue that has repeated itself over and over again. The trafficking and exploitation of Ugandan girls in the Gulf, particularly in the UAE. Each time it makes headlines, we hear the same promises of action. The same cycle continues. Desperate young women looking for opportunity and scrupulous agents exploiting that desperation, and a system that has failed to fully protect them. But this is not just a Ugandan issue. We know we've had stories elsewhere. It's a human rights issue, a governance issue, and of course, a diaspora concern. And this is where we come in to have this conversation. The It's sad that the same vulnerabilities that drive this tragedy are tied to the bigger picture. And this is about structural problems, unemployment, governance gaps, and the struggles our country in particular Uganda, face as we count down to the 2026 general elections. So today we are particularly going to look at what happened, the BBC but I beg your pardon, the BBC expose that was done, but also look at I want to call it a drama, especially because the back and forth is not telling much of what is on ground. 1 minute we are told there's a visa ban. The next minute we are told no, it's not. It is a misinformation here and there. But I want to welcome each one of you for joining us to this particular show, and I hope that we will be able to dive into this show with open minds and see how best we can all help each other. I see I have my usual panelists. Joy, it's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. I'm seeing Francis Kamuhanda. Thank you for joining us. Let me open the whole list and see who is with us today. I see Dr. Kisambira. I see, of course, Miriam Kyomugasho. I see quite a number of people. I see Robina. Yes, Robina, it's been a minute. And everybody, I will not recognize everybody, but I'm glad that you joined us today. And let's dive into this issue. Joy, if you remember, not so long ago we had the same conversation about the similar problems that are affecting Uganda, UAE issues. But quickly, let's first start and ask ourselves, really, how are we back here? Joy, I want to begin with you.
Thank you very much, Lynn. I was going to say good morning, friends, because I haven't had breakfast. Good afternoon, friends, wherever you are. Thank you so much for coming here, and thank you, Lynn, for hosting this session. We are here to have this conversation about something that's happening in our community. You know somebody who has been affected. You've read it. I watched the documentary, and I was just in tears. So we have all been affected by this, because when something affects the lives of people in our communities, we are all affected. So to kick off, Lynn, just again, maybe just to refresh for people to understand what we are talking about today. There was this documentary which was covered by BBC Africa, where and for those who have been following the death of Monica, that the two girls who suspicious, I call it a suspicious death. They tell us they jumped off the tall buildings. We call it suspicious because it wasn't really investigated. And so we are looking at all these, the BBC uncovered, series of, grooming and, sex trafficking, of young Ugandan women being promised jobs, we call it deception, but for them they are promised jobs, real jobs. You are going to get this amount of money. We see it on Facebook, we see it on TikTok saying you're going to get 1 million per month. And for somebody who is very desperate out there, you're like, oh my God, this is indeed a real deal. We call it deception because it's not real. And some of these girls are taken to Dubai, to the Emirates or to other countries in the Middle East on that deception. We talk about the living conditions. We were shown like over 50 people in one unit. You can't imagine putting 50 adults, young adults in one unit, with the infections and everything, the living conditions, no food, and all these are real people. These are people's daughters, sisters, and moms, young moms being taken there to be put, promised, we are going to take you to this. They show us all these beautiful buildings of the Emirates, and people imagine that's where I'm going to live. But this is what the documentary discovered. And we talk about the death and cover-ups again. I talked about, stories that, they jumped off, they were sick for 2 days. But actually, the BBC covered actually these people are killed maybe because they're about to report or they're about to run away. And then we also learned about, passports being taken on arrival. And like we said last time, I think they remember, I said, when you are living in a foreign country and they take away your passport, technically you have no freedom because you can't go anywhere. And we talk about the online abuse, because what they do, they record videos of you in a situation whereby you cannot leave this person who is holding you, because maybe in some some funny, I don't want to call it some awkward sexual situations, then they are going to blackmail you. They keep saying, actually they even release some of these videos to show that actually they can harm you. And then on the other hand, the person who is being blackmailed can either decide to commit suicide, but for us, we look at who caused this. And so we are going to be looking at, why our girls get into this situation and how we can protect them from becoming victims and what support is there. I'll be sharing my experience because here we work with trafficked women and children. I worked with trafficked children mainly in the UK, young people up to the age of 18, but I've also worked with women who have been trafficked into the UK. So it's a big, big problem, and that's why we are here. We believe that there is awareness. By having these conversations in communities, on platforms, our people will be enlightened. We believe that knowledge, information is power. When you know your rights, when you know there is protection, you are going to be protected. And that's why we are here. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joy, once again. We have Francis, we have Miriam, and I want to ask Dr. Kisambira. We dived quite into the story because it is very painful and many people have really, really been hurt, and the expose really puts a lot of the others that are still in the UAE about their duties in jeopardy. So we also have a lady who has been investigating some of these stories and maybe has seen what has been happening and has stories from other people, and she's going to tell us a little bit of what's happening there and how we come to these points, these alarming points where girls have to lose their lives unceremoniously, and how things get that bad. So I'm going to call upon Robina Kagoye. Kindly unmute, speak to us, and let us in on what is on ground. What do you know? What do you have? And what do you think you can share with us now?
Well, thank you so much, Lynn. I've been doing some research on the rights of African migrant women, specifically the Ugandan women working in the Gulf countries. And my research was not basically tied to UAE, but it was covering about 5 countries. It was covering about Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, UAE, and Kuwait. Now, you've asked many questions. Why the experiences I get from the sharing the experiences from these girls, that is a big thing. But also there's that question: how did the girls get here? I think those are many, many questions. But the first thing is the push factors. I'll start with the push factors. We are having many girls go out of Uganda mainly because of youth, because of the unemployment rate. Our current labor market, the labor market in Uganda is not attractive at all. We have about 89% of our labor force in the informal economy. And then even those ones who are having formal jobs are being, I think they're in what I would call underemployment or vulnerable employment. You very well know that Uganda has not had a minimum wage since 1984. Our current minimum wage stands at less than, I think, $2. And so when girls hear about, when women hear about opportunities in the Gulf countries where they're going to work as domestic workers, of course, most of the bilateral agreements Uganda has with the Gulf countries is basically on domestic work. That's where we are seeing an exodus of many women in the care sector because it is easier for women to be accepted as domestic workers in those countries. So one of the things, the push factor is that in the Gulf countries, they are being promised better payment. So most people look at, for example, the current job, even if it's formal, you could be an accountant working in a formal enterprise, but earning about 400,000. And here is a domestic job where they are promising you about 900,000 to 1.5. So you look at all those factors, and then of course there are some testimonies of people who have been there, they have built some homes, somehow they've educated. Of course, there are those lucky ones, and then people get motivated to go. But one of the biggest things that has made these girls vulnerable, for me, from my research, I would say there is a whole gap in knowledge. Most of them don't even know how they are going, where they are going to work, the whole migration process. How do they reach there? Whom are they going to work for? In Uganda here, of course, there are formal procedures that if you're going to the Gulf countries, you go through a licensed company. But most of these girls don't know. And some of them are coming from very, very remote areas. And agents go and source the most ignorant girls. They are brought to Kampala. When they are brought to Kampala, they process their documents and they are put. Actually, most of these agencies have spaces like accommodation. They are put there and they are told not to leave. Some actually some of them leave the villages and stay in Kampala for 3 months or 4 months before they're externalized out. So when they are here, they are only told about the good things. They are not told about the cultural expectations the other side, but also they are given fictitious employers because most of these agencies or brokers want to bypass they want to bypass the legal requirements with Ministry of Labor. So they will actually give the contracts to these girls and they'll put a fictitious employer with an address that you're going to work for so and so in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, and this is the address. But what these girls don't know is that when they arrive, for example, in Saudi Arabia at the airport, they are going to be picked by another partner agency. And that agency takes them to an accommodation center. And that is where the reality begins. They expected their employer who was in their contract to pick them from the airport and they go directly to work for them. But then here, they are picked by another recruitment agency in, for example, Saudi Arabia or UAE, and then they are taken to an accommodation center. And I think most of them call it, they refer to them as Viyumba. So when they reach there, their reality hits them. At the accommodation center, in most cases, that's where their contracts are changed. There's contract substitution. And then some of them even stay there for months because those employers, as they're staying in these accommodation centers, they they don't have they left Uganda thinking they had an employer, but when they reach there, these partner agencies have to renegotiate their terms with intending employers. So some of them are picked up, given to different employers who are not even originally in their contracts. But one thing that is prevailing up to now, even when the law forbids it, is the confiscation of documents. Whether it is these girls that are going through formal agencies, still when they reach in the Gulf countries, their documents, their passports are confiscated. So it is actually even worse when when these women go through brokers who are not licensed. The brokers who are not licensed are actually traffickers, and they will also use the same thing. They will confiscate their documents. Of course, I saw some of the comments where people are saying, oh, these girls were prostitutes here, and then they went there, they knew what they were going to do. But looking at that documentary, I don't think these girls went there knowing that they were going to do prostitution. Most of from the testimonies, they were promised jobs, proper jobs, but when they reached there, their documents were confiscated, and then they were recruited into commercial sex. So they become vulnerable because they don't have documents, but also the other vulnerability, why we are here right now, I mean, why things have become so worse. I'll talk about the aspect of the embassy support. Where is the Ugandan embassy standing in all this? The Ugandan government is getting a lot of money in remittances. And apart from remittances, I think it also collects the non-tax revenue through payment of job orders, but also vacancies. Every girl that is externalized formally through formal recruitment agencies, every vacancy or every girl who is getting out through formal means, the employer has to pay $30 to the Ugandan government. So the government is getting actually money from labor externalization, but then it is not equipping the embassies to be able to support the stranded Ugandans, the Ugandans that get distressed, that go there and end up getting abused. Take an example. I think in the financial year 2023-2024, the Ministry of Labor presented a statement before Parliament, and they said, "Oh, we are going to recruit staff, to recruit labor attaches, and put in all these Gulf countries, and we are going to also recruit some lawyers who were conversant with Sharia law, so that the girls, the migrant workers who are stranded, can get legal services, can be able to be helped." But to date, those staff have not been recruited. As we stand right now, there is only one labor attaché in one Gulf country, that is Saudi Arabia. One labor attaché who is situated in Riyadh. UAE does not have a labor attaché. I'm not yet aware of that. So if our embassies are not even equipped well to assist the Ugandans who have been trafficked or who are in distress, then it brings a little bit of a problem. So where are we standing? Because when you compare, for example, because some of these girls, you could ask them, how are other migrant workers treated? For example, the Philippines. And they would say, yes, the Philippines are not treated the same way we are treated. Even when we are taken in the deportation centers, their embassies come to their aid very fast. But when you compare Philippines and Uganda, the Philippine government has invested more in making sure that their embassies are equipped with the capacity to help their migrant workers, which is different from Uganda. And even then, for example, we are still externalizing girls to Jordan. We are externalizing girls to Kuwait, to Oman, but there are no embassies there. And one of the consistent reason the government has been giving, we don't have funding, but it's getting a lot of money from labor externalization, but it's not giving it back to make sure that the very industry that is giving, that is bringing that money, at least they could take it back, they could invest it back to make sure there's a balance between the actors earning, but also the migrant workers being protected in the event of exploitation. I'll stop here for now.
All right. Thank you so much, Robina, for painting a picture of what the situation is. And like I stated earlier, this is not the first time we are having similar conversations and looking at it. It has been ongoing for years, and like you said, there's a governance issue and there's a legal challenge there. But maybe to bring us up to speed, for years the UAE has been a major destination for Ugandan migrant workers. Official statistics from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development indicate that more than 150,000 Ugandans live and work in the UAE as housemates, cleaners, drivers, security personnel, and hotel staff. Now, the State Minister for Foreign Affairs said the restrictions of this was about the visa ban, which we're also going to look at. I wonder how, if that was a reaction, but still the Ugandan envoy to the UAE says that there's not been an official communication on the same. But I wanted us to take a look at the numbers that we are talking about now. I want to come to you, Sarah Kakyo, a lawyer in the US. And the question that is eating at my mind right now is that, are we having challenges? Because this is human, it comes down to human trafficking, clearly. If you're taking people to a different country, confiscating their travel documents, clearly you're talking about human trafficking, but also it points to the issue of labor laws. Is it a challenge in both countries, say in Uganda and these destination countries? Over the years, we have seen similar issues, come up. So, Sarah, I want to pick your mind on this. Is it the Uganda labor laws that are lacking? Is it the UAE Gulf labor laws that are also not stringent enough? What do you think is the major problem? Okay, since we right, I'll maybe she will join us later. Sarah, please, if somebody's near Sarah, please tell them to unmute and speak to us. But if not, let me come back to Francis Kamuhanda. Francis, first of all, I have had bad news this morning. Not so bad, but the presidential candidate has been told that he does not have enough signatures to proceed for the nominations, which are closing not before 30th of September. So that's very worrying. But quick one, Francis, again, and I will speak to you again about the same issues. We have had this conversation before, Francis, with you and some other panelists, and we still are seeing the same chain of issues, chain of problems, chain of happenings. The question here is, what are we not doing as a country? Because we have constantly had these conversations. What are we not doing, and what does this speak of our relations with the UAE?
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, other fellow panelists, for what you have already shared with us. Lynn, to begin with the question that what are we not doing, let's first, like how I think how Robin said that let's first look at the push factors. But for my case, since she already elaborated on that, let's first look at some fundamentals. Number one, we are aware by history and even currently that servitude in the Arab countries is like normal. That is number one. Then number two, we have also seen how there is a lot of mistreatment in hiding under the cover of the law, in this case, the Sharia law. So that gives them a leeway, like to do whatever they can do to anybody who is in their hands. But that aside, then we come back. What is the main problem when we come back home? To me, I look at it back home as a function of governance. That number one, the failure of institutions of government in Uganda that we have always talked about time and again, that underpin all this. So they have given a good ground for all this to thrive. While labor externalization is not a bad thing, but failure of accountability is where problems come from. You remember when we had this conversation where we said that number one, the Minister of Gender should publish the registered companies for labor externalization, and they should be well known, which they claim they did. We said, okay, where is the policy? What does it entail? I had the opportunity to read, but it still has some loopholes. And we had always said that let the victims be part of this conversation. And it has not taken place. And I'm forced to buy into a narrative that number one, some of these companies, those that operate legally and those that operate illegally, either they have, like any other human trafficking all over the world, they have big wigs in the government behind them. And I don't think that Uganda is exception. If we dig deeper, we might find that the reason why somebody is not bothered about this Ugandan suffering, there must be somebody in the government well connected who is benefiting in one way or another from these dubious deals. By the way, human trafficking is a big cartel, and where people have been implicated, in most cases, it has rested on government. In Uganda, there was a rumor, which yet Uganda, I thought, would pique interest, that some of these people were being given trafficked for human organs. Okay, instead of Uganda going ahead to investigate and find out, because there were a lot of allegations indeed, and victims had also been. Instead of Uganda going ahead and investigate, yes, it did a good thing by passing a law of organ donation in Uganda, but that does not protect the person who has been trafficked. So I think that there is still a loophole in the law. And then when I come to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and so on, I always ask, Lynn, these girls pass through the airport, live for a few cases that are taken to Kenya and so on. So the immigration doesn't have records. Sometimes there is when you ask them how many were externalized through company X, they even don't know. Then number two, hold the companies responsible. That, for example, can the companies ensure that every week or every 2 or 3 weeks, they check in themselves and give a report to Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development? Are the parents aware or relatives? Can they always check in on their people, how they are doing? But to crown it all, like the conditions, we have also done some research about it. We have seen the conditions, how they live there. I would say it is purely modern slavery, where our people are taken into a market and then sold. And then those people who buy them, they have the right to use them in any way how they wish, because they believe they bought them and therefore they own them, even going to the extent of killing them. So I still think it is an issue that is failure of government. Of course, our embassies, you remember, even the embassy that we had, the diplomats that we have there had turned the embassy into a casino. So instead of minding up, for me, the bottom line, I don't want to hear the argument that those girls were prostitutes in Uganda and so on. The bottom line is, I want to rescue a Ugandan, period. Whether he's a thief, whether he's what, whether he's disabled, whether he's I don't want to know. I want to know, is the Ugandan safe wherever they are? Then the question of whether he's a thief or whether he's what, then will come next. So I think when we come to what do we need to do, maybe we'll, I'll give more later about that. But for now, I still believe it is a function of government, and the government has a hand. Thank you.
All right, all right. Thank you, Francis. If Sarah has unmuted anywhere, the people in our audience, we're glad to see you. I will reach out to you later after we have gone through the panelists for today for your questions or comments. But be patient with us. Sarah Kakyo, if you are here with us, please let us know. But if not, we will proceed. Dr. Kisambira, you're on ground here in Kampala. You've had these stories. You are a student of diplomacy, and you know what all this means. It's been going on for years. We've had stories for a lot of many years, and there's a point where the Ministry of Gender said they developed certain working papers that were going to actually they were signed by the ministry here and actually the government the other side. They had come to an agreement to protect our girls, to also protect any labor migrants there. But the question here is, what does this mean? Is it not time for us to revise our foreign policy? Is it not time for us to sit down and have diplomatic conversations and maybe also seek an alternative job market?
Well, thank you, Lynn, and thank you, the panelists and people in the audience. I greet you all. It is afternoon here back home, so good afternoon. And good morning for Joy, who has not had breakfast yet. We hope you get a break and have your breakfast. Thank you, Lynn. One, I want to look at this matter in so many perspectives. Especially, we need to look back home and find the reasons as to why these girls are actually going. There's a big question to answer there. Why are we getting these girls out? Or why are they going? So when you look at the pre-events, the events that happen back home here, that would make people feel so desperate to move out of their own country to go and look for greener pastures, those are some of the areas that need to get fixed for us to be able to address this problem in one way or the other. Secondly, in another perspective, there's an issue of the quality of the people we are taking out. One of the challenges that we've had in our balance of trade and balance of payments are the things that we are exporting to other countries. What is the quality of that we are exporting? When it comes to human resource, largely, or the biggest percentage of the human resource that move out of our own country to go out there are people who are unskilled. They are not skilled in anything. So they're just casual laborers. And these, yes, you talked about the documents that were signed, but these documents may not work for people who are in the informal form of work. For example, people are moving out to drive buses, ride delivery bikes, work in construction companies. You see, when you examine the BBC documentary, they'll tell you some of these girls moved out to work in hotels, supermarkets, not as skilled laborers, but as casual laborers. So it is not easy to actually regulate them. So there's a problem of the quality of what we are actually exporting. And it is one reason as to why our people have been predisposed to these bad vices that are exposing them to some of those inhuman acts. So we need to also reflect on that, the quality of the people we are putting out. So on the diplomatic scene, I think that's how the hands of the UAE government are tied. Because yes, they would wish to get in on a diplomatic level, but how? The question is how? Do we have, let's say, an organization for example, if it were a set of professionals probably they will have an organization that brings them together and amplifies their voice on certain inequalities or certain things that will be happening in that line. But I do not think they actually have formal organizations that either maybe subscribe to the UAE laws that bring them together in any way. If they are disturbed by anything, they have a way of organizationally voicing their concerns to the people who are concerned that will be helped. So you'll find these are people who are actually hiding so deep in the informal sector to the extent that some of them have actually outlived their periods of stay. So they're in overstay. And they are hiding so that they find themselves desperate and the government has nothing really to do with them and they really can't help them. That's why you find that even those who have lost their lives in that particular struggle, the UAE government has played little or no role in trying to help them repatriate their remains back home. So it is been the responsibility of those who are actually back home here that are concerned that actually their child or their daughter, their son, went out to look for a living and they got problems, so they have to take on that responsibility to bring them back. It is not far from the reason as to why even companies usually have no say. There are companies here, but out there, I don't know what they are. You'll find that here, they are registered as companies that help people find jobs out there. But in the UAE, they're actually nowhere to be seen. So you've had cases here back home, media stories where people have lost lives in that struggle, claimed to have been helped by a particular company A to go and find a job. But when a problem comes, these companies are nowhere to be seen. Even when media personnel have reached out to them to go and maybe pick stories or context of how these have happened, they'll find those offices closed. Recently, we've had a saga of, I think it was called Skyping something, which has been helping people go out, but even back home here, they are being defrauded huge amounts of money and they are not realizing their dreams. So this is how desperate people are. First of all, they are unskilled, they are desperate, they are moving out into a world where no one knows how and where they belong. So when they get into such a situation, that is how the likes of Mwesigwa come to exploit them. So we cannot, I would like to pick something from Francis' point of view, that this is a cartel. When you see such things happening at such a large scale, just know it's not an individual. Mwesigwa is just a face of a big group of people that may either be connected to the government back here home, but also in the UAE. Personally, I've been in the UAE for a revisit, and I happen to have visited one of the places where these girls stay. When you get there, when you get to these places, you can have a pinch of the pain of what these people are going through. First of all, those who are employed are being overexploited in one way or the other. They are either working so much time, being paid little fees, and when issues happen, a slight issue, something to do with the racism in one way or the other, there's a way, it's not only Ugandans who are in the UAE, you find Kenyans, you find Nigerians, Philippines, so many groups of people. But as long as your color is more darker than the other, you'll find that the other races that are not dark are actually being more favored in one or the other than our own black people. So a small issue might happen and they will get fired from the job. Finding another job, that period when they don't have another job to do, is a very expensive period in all spheres of life, socially, economically, emotionally, physically. All things can just happen at a go if they lose where they earn a living from. Now, these people, it is so expensive to find, I think, an accommodation in that shared space where you find a small room of about 10 by 10 feet is shared by about 9 people or sleeping in deckers, and every decker is a room, you understand? So even amongst themselves, you find couples, like, for example, the lowest bed is, let's say, goes for about 600,000. Then the middle bed will go for less, maybe around 500, and then the uppermost will be at 400. But you find almost all the lower beds and the middle beds are occupied by couples. These people are also cohabiting amongst themselves, but cohabiting in a space where they are staying 9 people plus. They share a sitting room and maybe a kitchen. Now, imagine someone who has been in that situation being told that there's an opportunity where if you maybe go and sleep with so number of men, you earn this much. They will easily fall in, not looking at what the effects will be. So all this, when you examine them in so many spheres, just between the point from where they choose to say I am going out to the point whether they return alive or dead, it is a lot happening in there. Lastly, yes, Mwesigwa, like I said, is just a face of many. The question becomes, how did he also get there? He told you he was a bus driver somewhere. I am pretty sure that he was also looking for greener pastures and he found an opportunity. You see, for sure, if you put me as a judge to judge Mwesigwa as a person, you would find me it would be difficult for me to make a decision, because this is also someone who is looking to looking for a way to earn a living. He is simply in one way or the other connecting sellers to buyers. Sellers, some of these girls have actually chosen to do so. Back here, home here, you all know what is happening. There are so many girls who are moving from house to house, sleeping with men, doing same things like you've seen them happen in Dubai, only that these have come out from a camera and also on a platform where every one of us will know what is happening. But even back here, home, people are doing sex parties, people are doing all those nasty things, even here at home. So when they hear there is an opportunity to do this abroad, they have chosen to categorically go for that. I mean, these guys, as if they'll join a team of people who are going to maybe work as casual laborers in different houses, and they reach there and they get lost. I know of someone who went out there. When they reached there, they ran away from whoever took them, you understand? And whatever they were doing, I don't know. But from the stories I had, she was a sex worker in the Nigerian groups. Like, she joined a certain group of Nigerians who are doing sex work. So you have this group of people who are also choosing to do so, probably not because it is out of what really they wish to do, but because the situation has put them there. Now, lastly, are the efforts of rescue. You see, in my line of work, I happen to, do some sort of humanitarian work. And one of the opportunities I had was to help girls who have joined sex work, kind of work, if it's not out of their wish and they're finding difficult times, help them get out of there and find for them a new life. I'm telling you, I have found the hardest time to get to one. Getting to them is difficult. Them giving you space to talk to them, they'll first of all let you in as when they see you're a man and you've come, they will let you in. But once they realize you're not a customer, you never like the words. They will speak to you all the vulgar words that you've ever heard of. Even when you're presenting an opportunity that, please, if you're in this work and you're finding difficulties, I want to help you out of it, get you to the next opportunity. Many of them are not willing. I want to tell you, we've helped people who are not sex workers for the opportunities that would have been for those who are tired of doing that job. So you have the team that you want to rescue also willingly trying to do that. And it's only those who have found serious catastrophic problems that are speaking out and want to run away from it in one way or the other. But also, some of them run away but join something else similar to that. So diplomatically, it is difficult for both countries, Uganda and the UAE. And I know it is a tough decision. If it is true that the UAE has suspended visas for Ugandans at large, it is a tough decision that needs to be reviewed in so many angles, because you can't lose out on trade and so many other important things for the sake of just one portal that is misbehaving. That's what I have to say for now on that matter. I think maybe as we proceed, we shall brainstorm on how we can deal with the problem. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Kisambira, for that. Miriam Kyomugasho, I come to you, and as the Ugandan Diaspora Show, we we have a growing diaspora in the UAE. And as I speak, remittances from Ugandans working there have climbed sevenfold to 350 million US dollars 2024, up from 50 million in 2018. Now, I want to I'm trying to connect the two. Is it because we are receiving lots of remittances back home that we are failing to protect our people there? Is it because of the foreign exchange inflows that we are failing to, say our people need better? We need to actually put our feet down. You see, I love what's happening with USA in a way because it's trying to protect itself away from the rest. At what point do we realize that we ought to protect our people?
Hi, Lynn and the panelists. Good morning, good afternoon. Once again, it's a bright morning here in USA. Yeah, we've talked about this topic several times, and with the UAE ambassador from Uganda. So we've really, but the big thing, Lynn, this anything that is about money in Uganda and is going to be so complicated. The labor business in Uganda benefits the big people, and it wasn't even easy to put in the reforms that the Ministry of Gender has put on, and I wish to commend them on that, because the people benefiting from this exploitation are the people who are really also in charge of power. So it was kind of like a greed cartel, and it still is. Most panelists have said, Mr. Abe could be a front of someone big, maybe someone who is benefiting, and you don't want to see it. They don't want to show face. So he's like maybe a dealer in between. In Ugandan speak, they call them a dealer, a go between. We are yet to know that. But I hope this investigation, I know it was done by BBC, I hope the Ugandan authorities take it up and researchers and really get to the bottom of it, and we see exactly what's going on. If you all watched the documentary, the biggest and the saddest moment is that it starts with someone committing suicide. Mr. Kisambira, by that time, Dr. Kisambira, by that time someone commits suicide, they are tired of whatever is going on. They want to get out, but they don't see a way out. So it's at that crux moment, like you really have no way out of it in your mind, that you have to end your life. So when you say that some don't, of course some don't. But for instance, that girl, Birungi or Karungi, who died, I'm sorry about the name mix up, I'm sure at that point she needed someone to hold her hand and tell you, come on, we can do it. You can get out of this and still live a better life somewhere else. And unfortunately, we lost her, and maybe we are losing so many we don't know. And like Francis hinted on, we also know there is organ trafficking going on. So many times we've been seeing people coming back for, especially the young girls coming back from the Middle East. Some mentally disturbed, some mentally sick, some physically sick, some dead. And there were so many numbers of suicides as well. We talked about it some time back, more than 50 in a year or so. And even young men. So when we talk of prostitution, especially these days, let's not limit the discussion to the girls. We know there is LGBTI issues, and we know even young men are involved in prostitution, and they are also victims. But back to women, really, we know that whenever society breaks down, it's the women who suffer first. The Ugandan society, I know it's not as broken. You're going to say, oh, it's not as broken as Sudan or DRC, but it's so broken, especially for young people. They have finished school, they have no jobs. You left your home when you have sold out everything, thinking education is the solution. And education doesn't take you nowhere. 5 years later on after graduation, you still have no work. You still have nothing to do. And you are desperate. You want to survive. and someone comes dangling a carrot and say, hey, if you come over here, there are a few dollars here and there. And I hope some of them just say, okay, I'm going to do it for 2 years and get out of it. But it's a dark world. And whenever you see the word prostitution, read drugs, drug abuse, because they use drugs to cope with that madness going on. It is a fiscal infringement. It's an aggressive kind of thing for any human being to subject to themselves to prostitution. Nobody does it willingly, I'm sure of that. Some of them start it and somehow find themselves there and they don't want to get out of it. But I'm sure given an opportunity, nobody would be a prostitution. Sex is for enjoyment. I'm sure they would want to do it at home or with their loved ones, not to do it for money anywhere. So anytime we see prostitutes, whether in Kampala, if you go walking in Kampala, it's a Saturday, if you pass through some streets, you're gonna see young, beautiful girls on the street selling themselves, and it's a sad situation. It's just one of those things we've taken to be normal, but they are not so normal. They are so horrible. And if you put yourself in the shoes of those people going through that, I'm sure nobody's really living a normal life. I'm sure they are mentally disturbed, because that's a normal thing. If you are doing something, you can't even tell your parents that I'm doing this, then sure, it's a bad thing, and it's something you need to get out of it. If it's shaming you, even if these people were not mistreated in the prostitution, whatever they are, if you are doing something that is causing you shame, bottom line is you don't want to do it and you shouldn't be doing it. But you don't sometimes have a way out, or maybe you are caught up and it's like you've taken a habit, but you shouldn't be there. In the first place, you should have done something better if you had a choice. We know there are going to be exceptions, but generally, I'm sure people would be doing something different. As for the case of UAE and the Middle East generally, I think there is a lot of gaps that the Ugandan government could really close up. We know there is going to be labor migration because there are no jobs in Uganda, and it's an approach. It should be temporary. It shouldn't be permanent. It should be something temporary, which when situations improve in Uganda could be fixed and kids should stay home. If you go to Ugandan airport and you see the flocking of young girls to the UAE, it's something sick. It's not the usual. I mean, we all have labor migration in different countries. Some of us came to USA. There is you go to UK, you go to South Africa, you go to Kenya, you go. But the numbers flocking to UAE showed that there is something that is not so normal there. But we have taken it to be normal, and the government shares the numbers of the money coming in. But they haven't invested. They are reaping where they are not sowing. Like Ms. Robina said, if there was, excuse me, if there was consular services on the ground, if there was some government supervision, where people would say, okay, things are not working the way I expected, and let me run over here and get some help. Maybe some kids would run there instead of committing suicide. And as for the smugglers, this is a crime. This is a criminal offense, and it's big, and it shouldn't be brushed aside. I think it should be looked into, and people should be apprehended. Whether they are big, anybody really assisting in that cartel of smuggling girls for prostitution should be prosecuted, and that should be an example to deter others into joining into that in that madness. Whether it's in Kampala or anywhere, the Ugandan laws forbid prostitution, and there shouldn't be any kind of prostitution going on. So if you are doing it, you should face the law and you belong to prison. But on the bigger picture is, can we just look into why kids are going into such a situations to survive? Can we examine if the so-called labor employment? I don't think it's even the last option that it should be, because some of them are even abused in the homes they go to do domestic work, and we've seen the girls coming in coffins. I mean, that shows there is something so bad going on. It's not healthy. It's not like in UK, whenever things don't work, you're either deported alive or you have somewhere social workers like Joy where you can run to. Or if we can't put services there like social workers, like the government, consulars and administrative officers to manage that so-called enterprise, where the government thinks that's where they're going to get that foreign exchange, then let's stop it.
Indeed, what's the purpose? We ought to stop it. And for me, that is the most important point. Joy, I see your hand up. I'm coming to you, because we have sung this song over the years. I remember back in 2021, we had issues, and that's when the government came forward and drafted some law, and this is Joy, this is where you come in, the Employment Recruitment of Ugandan Migrant Workers Regulations 2021. There were several measures that were introduced, and I want to highlight a couple of them. Restricting ownership of recruitment companies to only Ugandan nationals. We are seeing that Ugandan Recruitment Agency is paid fees by foreign recruitment agency, and they shall not charge any migrant worker any fee. Charging migrant workers unauthorized fees. All foreign recruitment agencies that present a job order verification to the Ugandan mission abroad pay a fee of $30. So there was a lot that was done to sort of revise the labor externalization program for Uganda. I wanted to think that this should have been in effect, and this should have done something, because there was equally a louder noise during that period. And this is how these laws, this new regulation of 2021 came into effect. Now, Joy, I ask, and the same question I asked Sarah, unfortunately we missed her. What is the problem? Is it our labor externalization laws, or is it that the UAE laws, labor laws, are also not tallying with our own?
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you, Miriam. That was really very detailed and very informative. And I'm so glad that my friend Robina is here. She's going to break it down, regarding that particular law. But and we were just talking about it actually, and we said, look, if you say there will be no money that you have to pay as a broker, in fact, we are looking at those companies like brokers. They are not the ones who are going actually to work with these young people when they are recruited. They are recruiting on behalf of another company that is fictitious somewhere. Because on paper, they will get the paperwork, to process the visas and everything using that company. But actually, the other side, they're not the ones who are responsible for them. So now we don't get accountability when people get on ground. And this is where our government needs to come in, not just put a line to say, oh, you don't have to pay any money, because understand you pay up to 20,000 shillings, 20,000, pounds. Oh, these zeros confuse me. 20,000 pounds. You get 20,000 shillings, that you have to pay. But I'm telling you that money shouldn't be there in the first place. But from what we know, those companies are not real. They are there to process visas, but not to look after our young people who are being recruited. And again, like we said, in the UK, we have what we call the point-based system. Previously, we used to have what they used to call unskilled labor, which we used to call seasonal workers. They come to pick strawberries and apples. They come for seasons, and those people are well looked after. You have to evidence that you have where they will sleep. You have to show all this, because of course the UK criminalizes, any kind of exploitation, even including paying the minimum wage. These are the kind of things we are talking about. Now we are going to be asking questions. Does our government even know how much our people are paid when they are taken to these countries? Because that is part of the exploitation. What we are seeing right now is modern slavery. That's why we have gone where the person recruits you and passes you on, then that one passes you on to another person, because our young people should be able to leave the employee who is mistreating them, because the documentaries actually show that they're not even given food. They sleep on the floor. Now, for this family agency that cares about the employees, they will be interested in protecting their employees by making sure that actually they can actually prosecute, because this is abuse. You can actually prosecute that person. Do we have, Lynn, you asked whether is it the law in Uganda or the law the other side? I have to say it must be the law the other side as well. But also, Robina said our friends from the Philippines are not treated the same way. Does that mean that actually these Arab countries are treating Ugandans differently? And if so, then again, the responsibility is on our government to protect the citizens using the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have attended about 2 events. We had even last week the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which was chaired by Honorable Mhindo. I'm sorry, I have to mention the name because it was an open, forum. Again, they came here with the IOM. They really praise us, people in the diaspora, how we are really, funding the country. They're interested in our skills. In fact, they challenged us in the UK, saying the people in the Middle East are sending more money than us. We try to say, of course, for us, we invest more in the UK, not just at home, but our friends in the Middle East send everything. Can you imagine? They're sending everything. No wonder the money has gone up from our friends from the Middle East. But now, how is the government? Miriam said they are harvesting where they haven't actually invested. Because if they are seeing all these proceeds coming into the country, what are they doing to protect? I'm going to take this, actually, I'm going to share this with Uganda House, through the diaspora table to challenge our minister, Mr. Muhindu. This is a big deal to us. It affects us as people in the diaspora, you see, because what they need to tell us what they are going to do about this. Doctor has said, Dr. Kisambira has said, this is not about Umwesigwa. This is a big network. There are big players here, and these are government people, not just some squad people, from somewhere. Because who is turning their eyes away when these people are suffering? The purpose of the Uganda embassy is to look after the nationals in the country. In the UK, when you're British and you get stuck, they can facilitate your return in form of a loan. We can give these ideas, and that's what we keep telling our Minister of Foreign Affairs in the diaspora table. We know how to protect. That's because we are international lawyers. We know what other countries do to protect their citizens. If they engage us, we are going to advise our government on how to protect our people, because they're really contributing a lot to the development of Uganda. But again, to reinforce again this, Lynn, it starts from home. Are we doing enough to scrutinize these companies? What is the follow-up? At the end of the year, do we have a database that is keeping the names of people who have gone out, who have been recruited, who hasn't come back? Do we have insurance packages? In the UK, when you were coming on a work permit, of course, we had a situation of care workers, and actually the UK closed that package as well. Care workers, unskilled workers who come here to work in homes, in care companies, who were coming here and they were being exploited. They were paying them, less than minimum wage sometimes, or sometimes they actually lie to the home office. They would pay the money, but actually they don't pay because they know those people. So again, the UK is a better place, because if you know your rights, you can actually report your employer. Now we want to know, is somebody in the United Arab Emirates able to report if they know they are being exploited? If they take away your passport, can you go somewhere? I mean, we can even organize a protest in the United Arab Emirates. This is human rights abuse, and under their watch, how can the house next door be housing young girls sleeping on top of each other when there is all this big building of rich people and everything? And then we say that they don't know. They know this is modern slavery. There is something they're benefiting from. The kind, doctor, you said that, they go into these things willingly. I want to tell you, like Miriam has said, sex workers are posh people in the UK because they have chosen that. And I'm telling you, they don't go and do all those kind of things that they are doing to our sisters in the Middle East. They sleep in posh hotels. Those are sex work. They are paid good money because they wake up to say, I will go with this doctor, I will go with this engineer. They are paid by real people giving them real money. So we cannot equate that they chose that as a profession. Nobody pays all that money or puts their life online, leaves their children home to go to the United Arabs to sleep with 5 men and be given $50, and then you sleep rough afterwards. I don't think that is the case here. I just wanted to reinforce that this is not a profession that somebody aspires for. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. No one aspires for that, indeed, especially to be dehumanized. And when you watch the documentary, you literally, yeah. I see in the chat room. Please, if you have a question or comment, put your hand up or text us in the chat room. Francis Kamuhanda says Dr. Kisambira argues that others join sex rings willingly, but those who come out to complain and were forced into the act and need our government to protect and rescue. Yes, indeed. I quite agree with you on that. Uh, Francis goes on to say the Ugandan government intelligence agency goes after the youth and other Ugandans for exercising their political views. Why not use the same intelligence to bust cells of cartels dealing in human trafficking? You remember the Lumbuye saga, they followed him wherever he was. Why not deploy such resources to rescue Ugandans in UAE? Juba Anthony in the chat room says, consent given under pressure is not true consent. Countless Ugandans are pushed by circumstances, deceived by false promises, and caught in cycles of abuse. Uganda already has laws needed to protect the citizens. What's missing is the political will. I quite agree with you on that, to enforce them. If our government truly cared about the dignity of its people, both at home and abroad, these abuses wouldn't persist. Sadly, its priorities seem rooted in clinging to power rather than safeguarding lives. All right, thank you very much, Juba Anthony, for that. I see two hands up. I'll start with Sylvia before I can come to you, Robina. Sylvia, please unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lynn, for this opportunity. This is Sylvia in the US, and I wanted to just chip in something small as a diaspora, borrowing a leaf from Miriam, who submitted something very important. Well, first of all, I feel deeply sad that all this is happening to our sisters in the UAE right now. They don't deserve it. They absolutely don't deserve it. You know, young Ugandans, young girls, young women leaving home with hope, but too many find themselves trapped into exploitation and abuse. We definitely know trafficking is not migration. It is, to me, it is a deception. It is, yes, modern slavery, like somebody said, and it really robs our people of their dignity, and yet we all deserve better. But from my understanding, for sure, I know Uganda and UAE have both strong laws on paper, but the problem is our recruitment agencies that continue to violate these laws by falsifying these contracts, seizing passports, and treating our daughters as commodities. And like I heard Miriam earlier say that all this is happening because this comes to who knows who, the connection that these people have with the big people. But I think it's high time that as Ugandans, we must separate, all as diasporans, we must separate perception from the fact. The truth is that Uganda already has the laws, strong laws, that prevention, like the Prevention of Trafficking and Persons Act, and we even have the 2021 recruitment regulations. And no matter who you know, if you falsify contracts or traffic our girls, you are breaking the laws, for God's sake. And this is what these agencies are doing. So we should ask ourselves, where is the real challenge? And the real challenge is that some of these agencies that are continuously to act with impunity. And this is where the enforcement must be strengthened. But like I said earlier, the protection of our people, it cannot be left to the government alone. And we as diasporans, this is where we come in from. This is also our responsibility for all of us, for our families, our communities, absolutely diaspora leaders. I had my colleague from the UK saying that they have a diaspora desk, and she's going to take it upon herself to reach out, civil societies, and yes, definitely the state. If we all work together to expose these agencies, support the victims, and make sure that no connection is stronger than the law. Because at the end of the day, it starts with us. Yeah. And it will only be through joint action that we can truly end this horrific behavior of our girls that is happening in UAE or even any other country, and safeguard our fellow Ugandans abroad. And again, this calls for all Ugandans to work together. Lynn, our moderator, when you look at what is happening most of the times in the diaspora, most of the times we separate ourselves from each other. And that's why you find somebody say that people from the Philippines are not treated the same, because when they are in those countries, they have one voice. It's always one voice. When these people are in those countries, the first thing to come into their mind is, I am a Filipinese, I am Ugandan, I am Kenyan. But look at what we Ugandans do. We go back to talk about our negativity, to show ourselves how our laws are not working. But the laws cannot work if we cannot work together as a strong team and be the protector of each other. So I wanted just to say that the perception, to emphasize on that point, the perception of saying that these people have strong connection in the government, even though they do have, it's upon us to separate that perception from the fact. Let us come together, work together. Let us come out, just like the UK lady said, let us come out, take it upon yourself as an individual, come out, report where it is necessary, or act where it is necessary. Thank you so much, Lynn. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sylvia. I think I was calling you Sarah earlier. Apologies for that, but we're glad we clarified that. I see hands up earlier. We saw Robina, your hand was up. Please unmute first, and I'll come to you, Justin, and then Francis, in that order.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I just wanted to add more highlight on the aspect of the law here in Uganda and the law in UAE and other Gulf countries. Now, as the previous speakers have rightly said, yes, Uganda has the law, and you rightly highlighted the new reforms that were enacted in 2021. However, just like the previous speakers, whereas the law exists, the main problem has been enforcement and the lack of political will. And I will still emphasize that, because there's no way you're going to put in place a law, put in place sanctions, and you make enforcement weak. It's like you're just trying to give with one hand and then withdraw with another hand. When it comes to enforcement, honestly, you would just look at the political will of the government. We are having a Ministry of Labor, of course, with a department on external employment unit. But if you look at the statements, the political statements by the minister, she's always talking about funding. And we all know that if the ministry is not funded, then we cannot have these regulations effected, because it centers around funding. We are having very few labor officers, but also in the current regulations, for example, the complaint mechanism is not so clear. If it fails, for example, if it fails at the Ministry of Labor at a mediation level, by the way, the regulations talk about the migrant worker or the aggrieved party going to court, and court is not defined. And therefore, if court is not defined, the only court that has original jurisdiction in civil and criminal cases is the High Court. And the High Court is burdened with so many cases. Now, again, you're going to subject these migrant workers who are already vulnerable to lodge a complaint in the High Court. And even if they say the industrial court, even if the law was straight enough and said, or they can go to the labor court, the specialized labor court, but still that will be a little bit of a problem, because I'll still go back to the enforcement and the lack of political will. We know that this labor court is still one of the most underfunded courts in the country. It has only 2 judges, already burdened with other many cases around Uganda. So the government needs to revisit, to reconsider its will towards its citizens, because if labor externalization has become like a development strategy for Uganda, then the government needs to invest in it. And also, whereas the law might be there, I will not say that law is still sufficient, because there have been debates. When you look at the Employment Act, there's already a disclaimer in the law that all the provisions of that act shall not apply to employment outside Uganda. And then we are having regulations that are coming out of the main act, which has already put a disclaimer. So already that puts the regulations in some sort of, they seem to be like an alcohol kind of regulations. They don't have a strong backing of the parent law. And indeed, when you look at the current Employment Act, it speaks nothing about labor externalization. It only talks forbids employers from employing people illegally or illicit movement of people, but it doesn't have comprehensive clauses on employment of Ugandan migrant workers abroad. So, and I'll still again go back to the political will. In 2023, there was an employment bill that was passed by Parliament, and Parliament had actually, I think, recognized that weakness and put a whole chapter on labor externalization. But to date, the president has gone ahead assenting to all the other bills that were passed by Parliament, but the president has refused to assent to the employment bill. So I'm bringing out this because I think we need, as civil society and all other actors and all the well-wishers, we need to push the government to also consider other bills that are pro-people. They may not be bills that are touching matters of politics directly, but I mean, these are bills that are pro-people and they affect people. I cannot believe that to date the president has not assented to that bill, which was passed not only once, it was returned and again passed, but still he has not assented to it. And it was addressing some of these issues. So when you're talking about the law, yes, it is there, but it's not sufficient. And when now it comes to the law in the Gulf is so different from our law, because the Gulf countries still employ the kafala sponsorship system, where employers are given a lot of power towards the migrant workers. For example, the migrant worker cannot just leave without an exit visa or a certificate of no objection from the person who is employing him or her. So, and then also the Saudi laws and UAE, Qatar, all those laws, most of them exclude domestic workers from protection. So, I mean, even when we are talking about protection here and there, but then how do we enforce those laws in countries that are already excluding some of these categories of workers from protection? I think we need to look at that and see how can we revisit our bilateral labor agreements to see that actually even if these workers are not protected in those in the host countries, but if we can have agreements that bind still those countries to protect the rights of the people we are externalizing to those countries.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Robina. Okay. when you're ready to unmute. Francis Kamuhanda, you had your hand up earlier. Kindly unmute.
Thank you, Lynn. I want to first acknowledge the submission made by Sylvia, which is very good, that we need to come and team up, which we have done. But what we are seeking for is, where is government? As one person put it, government, where are you? Also, I would like to bring it to our attention that, Sylvia, you are aware that when we are talking about human trafficking, which our labor externalization has turned into human trafficking than labor externalization, we have to look at three things: the prevention, protection, and prosecution. Now, we as a people are trying to do all these, but we are asking, where is government? For example, by virtue of naming Mwesigwa in this scandal, government would have taken interest and even to extradite Mwesigwa, if we have bilateral agreements with that country, to come and then tell us we reach at the bottom of this matter. Then under protection, apart from us talking and even the law, you know, our laws are in English. Now we should ask ourselves, who are the vulnerable people? I think it is, Robina, who talked about, Joy, who talked about the people being in rural areas. Tell me one clip by government sensitizing at a local radio about labor externalization and what those vulnerable people should watch out as red flags. Zero. At least I'm in touch with different regions of Uganda. So that would be step number one. Now, if we would do the targeting demand, where is the demand of these girls or these boys or these women? And we target, government should be the one to target that demand. Then of course we are trying to do internet safety and so on. Like it would be, what is the Minister of National Guidance and Information doing? Their job is to go dig what is the falsification on internet that we have to make our people aware. So I think all this should come out. And when we are protecting, now instead of identifying a victim and protecting them, we first, those where prostitution is even here in Uganda before going outside, first identify the victim, assist them, assist those survivors, support them, establish a hotline, and then the rest will come later. I will give you an example, Lynn. I will not name the person, but everybody knows. You remember when one of the highly profiled wife of somebody in government was involved in drug trafficking in China and was arrested, was supposed to be murdered. Government went in to rescue the person. It is that same spirit. For me, my standard measure is whether Ugandan is a harlot, whether is a thief, the bottom line is a Ugandan, period. So is equal to Museveni, is equal to whoever. And then after, it's when I will bring you home and then I tell you what you are doing is wrong. This law here doesn't permit it. But when I have saved the life of a Ugandan. So I think that protection, we need to do it. But then when it comes to prosecution, now that we have identified some of these, do we have the strength as the citizens to prosecute? The answer is no. It is in the hands of government. Now they should tell me one or two people they have prosecuted alongside this trafficking in person. Zero. So that's where my argument stems. Are they working? If they had done it to 2 or 3 people or 4, but you find families crying for every other day. And my prayer has always been, can God help us? Also, these people in whoever in the government also, their relatives also fall victim. Maybe it's when they will know that this thing is real. So, but you find for sure we struggle, but as if government does not come in and say. For me, if I were in government, I would have, by the way, even the way how these things affect Lynn, they are affecting us. Even here in the US, wherever all people are, provided the government doesn't care, then somebody somewhere elsewhere will also be mistreated because they say, oh, those are Ugandans, those ones you can do whatever you want to do. Nobody even will come to the rescue. So I think the bottom line should be our government should come in and first think about a Ugandan. Then the blackmail and the name calling and so on, whether it's a prostitute or a thief or whatever, will come later. But we need to bust the cells. The cells are in Uganda. We have to accept.
Right. Thank you so much. Justin, I see you are with us. You had Sylvia will come to you, but Justin had her hand up earlier. Justin, please unmute and speak.
I think I've unmuted. Do you get me now? Yes, I'm Justin. I'm right here in Uganda. And I was very excited when I got this program. But one thing that I want to tell you is the government is directly involved and must come in either to stop this human trafficking or do it in a better way, because they know it very well what happens over the other side. One more time, I had gone to look for some kind of job. I wanted to teach, and specifically I went with my papers to teach. I went as a tourist. I went to Dubai. And when I looked at this Ugandan, I finished like 3 months. Joy is aware about that. The time I spent there, it was really a very bad time looking at these poor Ugandans yelling and running to the migration office and Museveni tuyambe, Museveni government help us, but nothing could happen. And these people who traffic these girls, these poor girls to those countries, in case of anything bad happens, they refuse. They deny them. They denied. We are not the ones who took them. We are not. It is not our organization that posted these people, like the recent one. But the government is silent, just because one speaker has said that very many of these organizations are being umbrellaed by the big shots in the government, whereby whether the poor girls go and find mess there and they are messed up, the government cannot play any hand of maybe putting on them GPS or what. It is like they are benefiting a lot. They are the beneficiaries. So what may be the effort you people can help us with is to make sure it is a big cry kind of that the government here through the parliament, as one speaker said, the parliament must speak, must riot about this, because they are renting here in Uganda. They know them. They are here in Ntinda. They are in Mengo. They are in such and such places. They are aware that they are trafficking these people. And after all, where do they pass? Through Entebbe airport, yeah, through migration, they go officially to this to Saudi, yeah, they go to these countries through, through Entebbe, through Kenya, and they fly to Saudi Arabia. Therefore, when they reach there, it is bad news. The government is very much aware. So I just want to end up by thanking you and requesting you people that let the follow-up be direct. You just direct the blades to the government, the parliament. It is only the parliament that is going to help to cry out, to search for these people, whatever they are renting, wherever they are renting to export these people. But it is really suffering in those countries.
Right.
Our Thank members you so much. Are suffering. And one member said, I like what one member said, that let us come down to the reason why are these girls going there? Why are these ladies going there? And if there is some kind of work on ground to rescue, would prohibit these people from going there, and they work here, but they go there as plan B, as the last resort. And let me make this, it is fun, but it is a real serious observation on ground. There are very many Easterners very many of these younger ladies from the east, from the north, are the ones going to grasp from there. And it is really bad just because they are not educated and there are no opportunities to work here. That's why they are going there. Not that they are going to do prostitution. By the way, they don't know why and which jobs are going to be given to them apart from being housekeepers.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Justin, for bringing that to our attention. Sylvia, I want to come to you, but before that, Miriam wants to run away. She's going to class, I suppose. Miriam, quickly give us what is on your mind, and then we can see what others have to tell us.
Thank you, Lynn. I wanted to say something partly in response to Sylvia, and the other one is a general comment. If Sylvia, if you watched this documentary, the guy Abe who is smuggling this, who is in human trafficking, is also alleged to be having access to NIRA register. He has a pile of passports. He has people's IDs. Those are government documents. How did he get access to them if there is no connivance with those people inside? Then there was someone reporting, she's a reporter, Ugandan reporter on Al Jazeera, who said one day she was at the Dubai airport and she saw a guy with more than 20 girls, and he was calling the immigration office and say, you guys give me some papers. I have the girls here, but I don't have the visas to enter. You know, like these people are really connected. So when I said it's they know who, Gamba Nogu, they know, they have access to power. That's why they are easy to go through with all these criminal acts without being apprehended. So we have the laws, but what about the implementation? Who's going to police? Who's going to protect Ugandans? That's the mandate of the government agencies, the police, all the security agencies. It's their duty to protect the lives of Ugandans. Even when people are ignorant, maybe these young women don't know what to expect over there. Maybe they are convinced by social media posts that, it's glamorous and it's going to be fun. But even if they reach there and they find things are not what they expect, it's the duty of the government to rescue Ugandans. So that's why we pay taxes. That's why we have them there. On the general part, I want to thank everybody who has commented, and this is a learning moment for all of us, but I hope those who have power to do something really do it. It's not heresy to have our kids ending up in prostitution. We know these things happen, and if anybody says, okay, in the Middle East, all countries, all young women from other countries, they are doing some funny jobs, prostitution, including prostitution. But let's not forget, especially in Africa, we have seen massive labor migration, or people fleeing the African countries to Western countries, to the Middle East in the recent years. And this has reasons. Whereas we have had growth of the population, we have the massive young people. They are skilled, they are educated, but they don't have opportunities. There are no jobs at home. Most African countries either didn't plan for this population coming up, like they are quote unaware that they're going to have young people and they need to survive. So that's why I was saying our countries are really broken, and this is something we can fix. It's not over us. It's not above us. For instance, today, I think yesterday, USA has put strict restrictions on HB visas. HB visas are people who are seeking employment based on skilled labor. That looks like a hindrance, but it's a blessing in disguise, because now these countries, these companies which were employing foreigners, if you approach them, they will be outsourcing for labor. Someone can persuade them to put maybe their a Google external office in Uganda, in Kenya, anywhere, or they can outsource our skilled workers from wherever they are. Today we have internet; anybody can work from anywhere. But what we lack is people to think through these things and make the necessary connections. We also lack infrastructure and the planners and the policymakers. What are our people doing really to plan for this young generation of Ugandans that we have with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam. Indeed, the biggest question would be, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? And that's also, that goes to the government. Sylvia, before you come in, people in the chat, the rest of the people in our lovely audience, if you have a question, please put your hand up or text something in the chat room. But Francis Kamuhanda says, Sylvia, the challenge is not challenges, it is failure and collapse of government institutions. During COVID, the government controlled everything, including rationing food. The government's will is ill. iPhone for mother, sorry, we didn't get your name. So sad what is happening with these people. Money is the root of all evil. I wonder if these human traffickers do have daughters and sisters. Shame on them. Rosette, London. Thank you, Rosette. I think you've just left. Dr. Kisambira says most of them are in overstay and in hiding from authorities in fear of deportation. So even when they get problems, they have nowhere to run. And then Sylvia comes in and says, Robina, instead of saying the will is ill, let's together push for what strengthens institutions, transparent procurement, digital tracking of local social support, I beg your pardon, tougher enforcement on corrupt officials and rogue recruiters, and consistent community feedback. I support government, but I support accountability even more. Let's pursue remedies within the systems we have while improving them. Juba Anthony comes in again and says, my sister Sylvia, we all know the problem for our motherland, Uganda. We can't train an old dog new tricks. All these modern frameworks for civic and human protection are new tricks for the government of new tricks for the government of Uganda. Okay, Francis, government, we look at this as business as usual, but when Department of State US picks it, it will end into sanctions. Interesting. Sylvia, I'll start with you. I would like to Joy, your hand is up. I think I would also love to hear from Dr. Chisabe. If you have something to comment on, I will ask you to prepare that. And then I think Juba Anthony, we need to give you a minute for us to hear your voice and tell us a little bit more. So I'll start with you, Sylvia. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And again, I'm happy to be on this show. It's my first time. Miriam has been calling me out, but because of time difference, it's kind of tricky for me. Lynn, I don't want to make this situation political because, one, it affects all of us at individual level, system level, and yes, as a country, you know. And Frank, I totally, absolutely hear you. I hear your frustration. I hear your concerns. However, I don't want also to agree that Uganda's problem is a collapse of government, like you said, government institutions. All the government's will is ill. You mentioned of COVID-19 as an example. Well, during COVID-19, government took emergency measures, some imperfect. Yes, but the aim was to protect the lives of Ugandans. Yeah. That was the major aim. And then keep these essential services running, you know. And if you recall, the fact is Uganda recorded fewer COVID-19 deaths compared to other countries that actually have even stronger systems and bigger budgets. But guess what? Uganda managed to record fewer COVID-19 deaths, and those statistics are there. You know, I don't want to mention countries where deaths were at the biggest number, but we all know those countries. And yet Uganda, despite its limited resources, it managed to keep the numbers relatively low. You know, And that happened definitely through these timely lockdowns that were put in place, the public health campaigns, and then the community interventions. So, if there were failures, let's say in for distributions or by individuals, what was our role there, we as citizens? By the way, who is the government? The government is not Museveni, the government is not it, the government is you and me. Is that correct, Lynn? Yeah. The government is you and me.
Absolutely.
So, what is our role here? If we see these challenges, let us call them out. So instead of us saying the wheel is ill, let's push for what strengthens these institutions. And that is transparency systems, digital tracking, like I said in the message, and the social support. Because together, if we enforce or if we have this tougher enforcement on corrupt officials, and I'm so happy that President Museveni has been at the forefront of fighting these corrupt officials, and then call out these agencies and consistent with community feedback, trust me, we shall see a difference. I support the government. Yes, I support what they do in some areas. I don't support what they do in some other areas. But trust me, I strongly support accountability because it is very important. It is paramount. So if we have these cases, we see where the problem is, especially even us who are here. Frank, I think you are in the diaspora as well. Let us use the experiences that we have here to solve the problems that are taking place back home. And one of it is calling out every institution that is not working right. I beg to submit, Lynn. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Sylvia, for that. Joy, your hand is up, but allow me hear first from Juba Anthony, and then we can come to Dr. Kisambira and then Joy. Juba Anthony, unmute and speak.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. I'm Juba Anthony, as the name shows up there. And from the documentary which I watched on BBC I, that one makes me ask a question of, if BBC had not conducted these investigations, what would we be discussing at this moment? Because it implies that we have so many Ugandans who are losing their lives, who are becoming casualties in UAE. As we speak now, we have more than 170 Ugandans outside there, thousands of them starving in detention centers. But when they try to call up the same labor agencies which took them there, they say that those are rumors, yet people are losing lives. So the question which we would ask is that, what can we do, and are we capable of doing it? And if so, how are we doing it? So basically, that's what I have to say for now. But it is really so downhearting and inhuman to see
Absolutely.
that a prudent regime could allow only to be just commenting like us and ordinary citizens of the nation, that it is after UBC that now Uganda also can have these discussions in Parliament of Uganda, as if Monica died just yesterday.
It
is so emotional.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anthony, for that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Joy, still allow me, hold on to you a bit. Dr. Kisambira hasn't spoken in a while, so let's hear from you, Doctor. Reactions, I see we are running out of time, but I want to hear as many reactions as possible.
Well, thank you, Lynn, and the panelists once again. Well, let me start from Juba's submission. You see, like I said, it is only that this matter came out on a platform where all of us have ears and can, listen from it and recognize what they have said. But also, like I said, so many issues are being raised here back home from our own media platforms in different aspects of life, aspects of governance, but nothing is being done about them. So just like, let me just bring an example. Recently, there's been stories airing out of the state of maybe schools in our country, our own country, on our own media platforms, but nothing has been done. But I think this is the second time I'm seeing a story being covered by BBC on a matter that is concerning our country, and it's been taken seriously, and all over everyone is talking about it. So it takes me back to Sylvia's submission. I want to agree with you that we should not politicize this matter. Every one of us has a role to play. But I also want to disagree with you that I want to agree with someone who said the will is really ill. Because yes, back to Juba's question, if the BBC had it come out, what would those who have the power of the rest of us do, or what were they doing to make sure things move the right way? What are they doing currently to make sure things are actually moving right? So if you say it is us and we shouldn't keep quiet and we should come out and speak, the question is how many of those that have been spoken about been taken serious and solved. So we should not forget the fact that there is a governance question in our country, a serious governance question that is not only affecting areas of labor export, but many aspects of life, come to health, education, infrastructure, social services, and many things. Yes, we can't build a country in just one day and get to where every one of us dreams it should be. But there are some things that are so fundamental that no one from out should come and lecture us on how really these things should be done. It is us to create our own value and also defend it. You see, there's some common saying in international relations that you do not get what you deserve just like that. It's not so obvious that you get what you deserve. You actually get what you negotiate for. So it is us to come out and really put, we need to put serious stamps on what we stand for as a country. And we need to hear out of, from those guys who are receiving our people, giving them an opportunity to earn a living. What do they want? So we have to merge these two cultures. We have to merge these two norms. We have to merge these policies. We have to merge the regulations to make sure we have a very firm ground on which we can stand to demand for each other's rights in such circumstances where any of us from both sides feel something is not moving in the right way. So on this matter, therefore, the solution lies in coming back home to sweep our own house. First of all, like I said, let us export what deserves to be exported, and that's the only way it can be given value on a global scene. Secondly, if we have exported something, let's follow up to the dot. The government ought to have organized these people in a certain way that is actually recognized back home. Let's say in each of those Gulf countries, they would have an association that keeps all the immigrants together. One of the prerequisites would be, once you've chosen to move to a certain country, make sure you subscribe to that particular association such that we can follow up where and what you're doing. Where you'll be and what you're doing. I think it rests upon government to take that up. Can we have those associations that everyone who says, let's say I am a Ugandan, I have migrated to a country A, there is an association of Ugandans in that country, that is recognized by government, it is the responsibility of this association to follow me up because I subscribe to it. Let's say maybe they'll be charging a small nominal fee for that, and that can set for us a very good start for us to actually solve most of these problems. Once we do those small things, then we can go the policy way. We develop policies, we develop regulations, and all those bureaucratic stuff, which might actually not be followed if we don't have the primary pillars, taken care of. So I think for us, the solution lies in those two things. Let's sweep our house, export quality, and yes, once we choose to export anything, let's follow it up and organize it at that stage, and then we can have control over what is happening in all fields of that particular sphere. Maybe lastly, we need to open up the portals of engagement at that level. What is our consular doing in this regard? How have they helped? We need to hold them accountable. I don't know how, as an ordinary citizen, I don't know how I can hold them accountable. But I think we need to hold them accountable. Whoever is responsible should do that. How have they played their role in trying to make sure that the reason as to why that consular was established is actually fulfilled? Because I believe one of them is to make sure our own people get what they deserve if they are into that foreign land. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kisambira, for that. Joy, your hand has been up long. Please unmute and speak.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you, Dr. Kisambira. You just said everything I was going to say. Thank you very much. I just again want to say, when you leave home, please don't be isolated. There is power in unity. And like what Dr. Kisambira has said, look for fellow Ugandans, look for an association. If you don't have any, please come together. When you are together, there is power, there is protection in unity and knowing knowing that you can check on one another. There is a bigger voice when it comes to lobbying. We've had several meetings with the IOM and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They have promised us that they're really interested in the diaspora community. And they have told us that they really want to know what we're doing and how they can support us. But like what Dr. Kisambira was saying, how can you, is it to make a complaint or maybe have some kind of action or maybe to make a complaint? It may be difficult for you to do it as an individual, but if you come as an association, you have a bigger voice. You are more likely to have more impact when you make a complaint. Say, for example, when you say we are going to march, if you go and march alone, they are likely not to pay attention. But if you go as a group, you are likely to raise, awareness, and people start paying attention to this. We don't need more laws. We just need action. Now, we also need to, look out for NGOs. There are so many NGOs around. But when most people go to countries, just think about how do I make money. First, look after yourself. See how I'm going to be protected. Find out. I don't know. Was it Sylvia or somebody talked? Was it Francis who talked about the language? Have we of our sisters in Uganda aware of all these things? We need to teach them by having these small forums. We can go into small communities on radio. We can speak the local languages. Let's tell them, don't go overseas on visa to work. You will not be allowed to work. You will just become vulnerable and you will be exploited. If you want to work, look at the right ways of going out of the country for the purposes of working. By doing that, we're protecting ourselves while we are waiting for the government to put the house in order. But if we say we are waiting for another law for the government to act, we may take long because the government has a lot to benefit from this relationship with the United Arab Emirates. But how are we protecting ourselves? I think if we do that, then we shall put more pressure. For example, we can actually I've never been to Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry, but I know that we can use international law to lobby and they will be exposed. And if they're exposed, they have a name to protect. And by having those little associations or, small groups in these countries, for example, with the UK, the UK Ugandan lawyers, we can say, let's go and maybe conduct some interviews. And then we use our voice as the UK Ugandan lawyers to make a complaint because we are an association and we represent interests of the diaspora. So please, let's look out for each other. Let's form associations. Don't be alone. I know some of you, when you leave Uganda, don't even want to be called Ugandans. But I tell you, when everything hits you, you realize you're indeed a Ugandan. Be a proud Ugandan. Look for fellow Ugandans. Don't suffer alone. Thank you so much, friends, for coming tonight.
Right. Thank you so much, Joy. Let me see what we have in the chat room. It's quite a lot. Allow me read some of these comments. Francis Kamuhanda goes on to say, Sylvia, as citizens, we are doing our best, but the government is passive on some of these issues. Why did I lose it? Some of these issues that need critical attention. As I said, the solution has three components of prevention, protection, and prosecution. It is government that can do the prosecution, unless if you want us to involve international agencies. Sanctions kick in, which route may not be desirable as of now, but can be activated if need be, because we know who to target. Sylvia says, I think we also, he says, Francis, I think we know we also need to be fair. Uganda is a sovereign state and it cannot run its affairs in fear of sanctions or outside pressure every time an issue arises. The U.S. Department of State has its role, yes, but our government has also the responsibility to weigh matters carefully, investigate them, and act in line with our own national interests and laws. Sanctions are not inevitable if we strengthen internal accountability and address problems of transparency. Okay, right. Thank you. Sama says, thank you, Joy. Okay, fantastic conversation we've had there. I want to take a few more minutes to hear comments about the new development, which of course is sort of related. The visa ban, what are the odds that it came? Well, it is still being denied by both countries, and we know there's never a smoke without fire. But I want to pick your comments as we conclude on this conversation. What does this mean going forward? Because how come it comes shortly, in fact, on the heels of the BBC documentary? And I'll begin with you, Francis.
Thank you, Lynn. It is now a trick to establish the authenticity of the visa ban now that all the two countries have come out to deny it. But the documentary itself was soiling the image of these two countries. And therefore, chances are high that either UAE could have come out to protect its name, that look here, if people who are coming here, this is what they are doing, then we can limit. I do agree they are always overstaying of visas and so on. So as a measure, as a precautionary measure, the government can do it. And you find that if maybe they did it and then realized that it is also affecting their diplomatic relations with Uganda, then they have the right to deny it, or they may say, oh no, we did not do this, or they revoke or retract their ban. But then, of course, for Uganda, the bottom line has always been, even when something is on a silver plate, government will come and try to deny. Why? Because even currently, you don't know who is the spokesperson of our government, because everyone will come and speak and so on and so forth. So for Uganda, I may not take it seriously in terms of denying that has not happened, because there is a laxity in as far as following some of these issues. And Lynn, you remember, I have always said, I don't underestimate the diplomats that we have in Uganda, but I have said of recent, even using the words of the president, Museveni, he said his government is full of fishermen. Yes, indeed, sometimes he normally picks people who are even not career diplomats to go and become career diplomats and so on. And you find when it comes to official communication, some of them lack what it would take to communicate. But if UAE did that for purposes of protecting their country and interests, I would absolutely say they are right. But then the question would be, what is Uganda doing? Okay, Uganda, can it also say, for example, we are banning labor externalization, and then they discuss, because how Ethiopia did whenever such an issue arose. They were like, no, we have to go and negotiate. If our people are coming, they should come in format A, B, C, D. And I thought that that should have been a lesson for us to learn from as African countries. Why did Ethiopia ban the externalization of labor to those countries? And because we have said, and to protect your image, because it's as if UAE takes us as if Uganda is the one that imports maybe prostitutes for our country. And maybe as per Sharia law, prostitution is not allowed, because that is something that we also have to look at. And I think there is a lot that we need to do. But again, like as I said, it is failure of government institutions, period.
Thank you, Francis. I come to you, Kisambira, Dr. Kisambira. Allow me ask these interesting questions, because now we are seeing a lot of restrictions, a lot of sanctions around Uganda. And I want us to look at it on the international relations lens. What does this mean? Because our image has been tarnished. It is really looking bad. What does this mean for the sanctity of our passports as Ugandans we travel abroad? Are we going to be looked at badly? This is a Ugandan. If somebody identifies somebody as a Ugandan, and then there's going to be missed flights or delays. What does this mean? Because first of all, our remittances as a diaspora community is huge. But with the way our image is looking, there's so much that needs to be done. I need your, what are your reactions towards this?
Well, thank you, Lynn. Briefly, I should say, you see, on the global scene, the power arena is shared in terms of how much you weigh in so many aspects there. So, I mean, if so many countries are imposing sanctions onto Ugandans and Uganda as a country, that actually shows you how we are depreciating in terms of value on the global scene and the global market. Now, when you look at, yes, you have those who are at the core, you have those who are in the middle, and then the periphery. And we are not so far from the periphery. If not, we are in the periphery as well. So if we are not looking at what I'll say it again, what we are selling out gives us the value, you understand, in terms of culture, in terms of economics, in terms of trade, in terms of human resource, in terms of laws and policies, our international policies. I mean, in all aspects, what we trade out gives us the value. So now it is, for me, it's not actually news, or it doesn't amuse me to hear that we are being given sanctions. It is only because those guys imposing sanctions on us do not lose anything if they do not have us on their side. And it is us who actually need them on that global stage, because one of the ways maybe countries choose to push for their interests is choosing who they ally with. So if you make the right choice of your allies, it is going to soften the way you push for your interests. It gives you soft power. So whenever we lose on allies in terms of, in terms of participation in the global scene or in the global market, and we lose credibility on a certain stage, for example, there are countries who will say, yes, we shall only allow those who so and so allows into their country. Take an example. If I think there are some countries, if you're to apply going there, they will ask you if you've traveled to any of those countries with whom they ally. So if one country, for example, I strongly believe that if the UAE is serious about imposing sanctions to Ugandan passport holders, it is going to cut across. You'll find most of the countries in the Gulf are going to do so. In one way or the other, they will do so. If they do not do it directly, then they will do it indirectly. They may not impose public sanctions, but our people could find difficulties doing business into those countries. people would be denied entry at the airports after they spent money on tickets or so on. So you find that so many countries will follow what one has done if they actually mean something to them. Now, for us who have something to lose but nothing to present, we are going to be left out for the hyenas to feed. You get? So I want to make a loud call to whoever is concerned with our image. Once our image is tainted out there, we still have more to lose. And we should revise it in ourselves that what we are sending out is not what actually those people need. Is it Francis who said, every one of us knows that Sharia prohibits prostitution. You get? But because of the laws that govern, the global market, the international laws that govern international migrations and all that, you could not strongly restrict some of these things. They come because of globalization, and the ways of controlling them are quite difficult. For example, even when you went to let's say the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where the heart of Islam starts, you would find there are prostitutes there. But it's because there is globalization. You won't restrict some people to move to your places. And once they move in, you may not have all that it takes to control what they have come along with. So that means that if countries are going to take a bold step of saying, okay, Ugandans all over, you are known for prostitution, and we shall not allow this happen in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We are basing on this because one of our strong allies, the UAE, has chosen to do so, and we are going to do so. And this may spread across. So we have a lot to lose in that line. It rests upon all of us to make sure we protect the image of our country on the global scene. Otherwise, it will affect us across academics. People will be denied admissions into international schools. Trade will be lost. So many things to lose, Lynn. So, I can't say much on this, but just know I'm so sorry that it's happening, but we have no control. Thank you.
Absolutely. Indeed, actually, what happens is that it reverberates across every other nation that we, of course, are allied to. I want to take more. If there are any, Robina, do you have a comment? We have very few minutes to get out of here. Robina, if you have a comment, anyone, let me see what's in the chat room, and we get to you. Okay, France. No, I think we finished this one. Okay. Justin says, very good points, Joy. I see if one is in the country legally, they would struggle to speak about it. They would only want to speak to those they would only want to speak to those they can trust will do something to help and not stir up more trouble for them. We've also heard about how some Ugandans choose to stay away from fellow Ugandans abroad because some Ugandans have been reported to the Home Office by fellow Ugandans. How do we build trust amongst ourselves? Very important question there. It's about time we did some introspection. Juba Anthony says, excuse me, everyone. I truly appreciate the insights shared during the session. Unfortunately, I have to step away due to another commitment. Thank you, Juba. Thank you for the engaging discussion, and look forward to continuing this important conversation. If there are no further comments, I thank you very much for joining us. Yes, Robina, Robina, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to add on a small comment that the aspect of UAE banning the visas actually just shows us that labor externalization or labor export is not a sustainable development strategy for the government. It's not a sustainable option to youth unemployment. So the government needs to come up with sustainable strategies of creating employment within Uganda and decent employment. So because at the end of the day, UAE, just like the previous speaker has said, does not lose anything, because as we speak right now, there are so many other countries in Africa that are sending their workers there, that are desperately sending their workers there. So it is Uganda that gets affected more. And so we need to look for strategies that work for us within Uganda, that make the youth to be employed within our country. Yeah.
All right, all right. Thank you, Robina. On that particular note, the U.S. has increased. The U.S. is getting tighter by the day. So somebody is saying, please check on your relatives in the U.S. President Trump has essentially dismantled the H-1B visa route to the U.S. It is a non-migrant visa that allows U.S. companies to employ foreign workers in specialty occupations that require theoretical or technical expertise. So Donald Trump, the president there, has said that employers will now have to pay $100,000 per year to retain a foreign employee, and that employee will only be granted single entry access to the U.S., meaning you cannot travel home for any reason without losing your status. It is getting tough. I think we ought to learn some lessons from the US and from other countries. Some bit of protectionism is very important. We need to protect our people. And I thank you very much, Francis, Dr. Kisambira, Councillor Joy Kyakwita, Councillor Sylvia, and of course, Councillor Robina. Hey, everybody that participated today, we thank you very much. Miriam, in your absentia, we had there were a number of people, of course, they've gone off, but we thank you for joining us today, and I hope that we will continue this conversation, and perhaps somehow we can see some change, we can effect some change, and especially for our people. I thank you very much, and I wish you the very best of the weekend.